Hello everyone, I am Samuel Spade and this is my oral presentation for class. Today, topic will be over shared struggles, diverging paths, African Americans and Mexican Americans in U.S. society. Good afternoon everyone. Today I'll be talking about the relationship between Mexican Americans and African Americans in the United States, focusing on two interconnected topics. One, the challenges both groups have faced in the U.S. society, and how those challenges have shaped their assimilation. I will butcher that word throughout this video, I'm sure. Forgive me in advance. Into American life. These two groups have long, complex histories in the U.S., histories that involve not just marginalization and resistance, but also cooperation and at times tension by comparing their experiences. We can tension. By comparing their experiences, we can better understand the way race, immigration, and structural inequity shape identify identify and belonging in America. Part 1. Challenges faced in US society. So let's start with both let's start with challenges both groups have encountered. African Americans have endured centuries of systematic oppression, whether it be from slavery to Jim Crow laws / segregation to ongoing police violence and mass incarceration. Their identity in the U.S. has been largely shaped by forced migration, meaning they did not come to the U.S. by choice, but were brought here through enslavement. The history of involuntary presence has created a long standing racial caste system where blackness has been marked as inferior in law, culture, and economics. There's a hair on my monitor. Sorry about that. Mexican Americans, by contrast, have been faced with challenges linked more closely to uh, language barriers, and there's a fly in here. Sorry, and or exploitation. Many in the U.S. before parts of the U.S. even became the United States as we know today, such as in Texas, California, and the Southwest after the Mexican American War. Despite this, Mexican Americans have often been treated as foreigners regardless of how many generations have lived here, which kind of does make sense. Um, both groups have been exploited economically, African Americans through slavery, low wage labor, and Mexican Americans through agricultural and industrial labor. With few protections, both have been racialized and seen as different and less than the dominant white Anglo-Saxon Pro- Protestant society would be a good example, and have been denied access to full rights and representation. However, their challenges differ in how they are legally and culturally framed. African Americans are often seen as preeminently disadvantaged due to their race, while Mexican Americans are sometimes expected to pull themselves up as immigrants even when they're not immigrants. It's kind of wrong. This distinction has affected how society treats each group and how they are expected to assimilate, which leads me to my second topic. Part 2, assimilation into U.S. society. Hey, I'm getting better to pronounce that word. Assimilation refers to the process by which minority groups adopt the cultural norms of the dominant society. In the U.S., that has historically been white English speaking Protestant norms. For African Americans, assimilation has always been complicated by racism, even when African Americans fully adopt American culture norms, like they speak perfect English, dress according to white standards, excuse me, and gain higher education, they are still often excluded from full acceptance due to the color of their skin, which is wrong. That's because anti-blackness is deeply embedded into U.S. culture. For many Black Americans, the question isn't just about culture assimilation, but about being accepted as fully human in a society that has historically dehumanized them, which is very wrong by today's standards. I I can't even imagine. For Mexican Americans, assimilation has been more focused on language, education, and cultural blending. There is often pressure to lose Spanish and adopt English as a marker of success. So, schools have historically punished Spanish speakers and promoted Americanization programs. Over time, some Mexican Americans have been able to assimilate, especially lighter skinned individuals, but at the cost of their cultural identity and international internalized racism. Excuse me. Sorry. And here's where things get even more complicated. Mexican Americans have been, seen as a model minority in contrast to African Americans, especially when they are perceived as willing to work hard, assimilate quietly, and not challenge authority. But this image is both inaccurate and dangerous. It pits communities of color against one another, connecting these two topics and how they intertwine, so to speak. So, how do how do challenges in the U.S. society relate to assimilation? Here's the key point: the systematic challenges both groups face directly affect how and whether they can assimilate. African Americans face a form of racial exclusion that prevents full assimilation no matter how much they conform to dominant norms. Their relation to the U.S. is shaped by a lack of choice in migration, which creates a unique and painful dynamic that they are told to assimilate into a society that denies their full humanity, which is awful. No one should be denied that. Mexican Americans, by contrast, often face challenges that are language based, illegal, or cultural, and sometimes they have more access to the assimilation ladder, but that access often comes with the pressure to distance themselves from both their culture and from Black Americans, sometimes reinforcing anti Black attitudes to gain acceptance from mainstream society. Human nature. Gotta love it. This creates tension between the two groups. There have been periods of solidarity, such as during the Civil Rights Movement, when figures like Cesar Chavez and Martin Luther King Jr. saw their struggles as linked. But there have also been periods of division, fueled by competition for jobs, housing, and unequal treatment by the legal system. Conclusion. To conclude, both African Americans and Mexican Americans have faced enormous challenges in U.S. society, but those challenges have shaped very different paths to assimilation. One group, excuse me, One group, African Americans, have often been denied the opportunity to assimilate because of deep-slated racial barriers. The other, Mexican Americans, have sometimes been pressured to assimilate by shedding their cultural identity, often at the expense of solidarity with other marginalized groups. Understanding these differences and the systems that create them is key to building cross cultural solidarity and dismantling structures that divide people of color in America. Thank you.